Welcome to If the Mirror Could Talk podcast, where we talk about truths, triumphs. We talk from everything to doctors to coaches and to help you to personally develop your life better than ever. Today, I have an amazing guest who is now living in the UK but has an amazing story. And please introduce yourself and tell the folks who you are.
Thank you very much, Mira. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. I am Karolina Kowalska. I'm a coach for women. I specialize in coaching single women to go from heartbreak, overcome breakup into their single amazing life and thrive solo in their single life. And my story has been quite interesting, I think. So at 24, which is 21 years ago now, I've moved from Poland to the UK and have started my corporate career within insurance, still working here, but as I said, coaching women as well. And it has been a journey, as you can imagine, coming from, relatively small country in a small town. Although I lived in a city, it's kind of completely different, upbringing to what I've experienced moving to here. And so there is a lot of twists and turns in my journey unfolding up until where I am now. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'm passionate about helping women to overcome all their kind of, the shyness, the I'm not good enough, the imposter syndrome, the inner critic. This is where I came from. And this is basically my kind of passion for the last 10 years.
And I think we had such a connection with that because you have overcome some just tremendous things that I think a lot of women are not bold enough to do, to say. And you really just wowed me. So, how did you get started in this industry? What made you want to help women?
Good question. And I think there is a lot of, I could go in so many different directions, but I think the main point was choosing yourself, like really making sure that, whatever our circumstances are, we always have the choice. And I think that's my true core
Mhm.
passion, helping women to understand how powerful they are, how much is going on in our minds, in our bodies, in our emotions, and how much we carry throughout, our life
Mhm.
based on the stories that are not necessarily ours. So I think I've mentioned to you in our previous conversations that my turning point was, and this was probably the bravest decision that I have faced, being 42. And I've always kind of, before, I always, imagined myself being married, having family and all of those things. And
Mhm.
it got to the age, I met someone when I was 40 or just after 40. And then we've been together for a couple of years. And
Mhm.
strange times, COVID times. So I think it was the time where we all felt a little bit lonely and kind of lived in the
Mhm.
smaller bubbles as such. And then when the world opened, I realized that we're not necessarily aligned in the same way I would have imagined my relationship and my marriage to be and to look like. So yes, I've decided. Long battle, don't get me wrong, it was a long battle and long time coming to that decision,
Mhm.
but ultimately I have decided that marriage is going to be a good one for me. So yeah, that was, I called off my wedding, my engagement a few weeks before. The hardest decision I have made to this day, but I am so proud of that as well, because it's that ultimate passion to, what I'm teaching now and what I'm speaking to women about now. It's, you don't have to be somewhere that doesn't feel aligned.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay somewhere that doesn't feel fulfilled and content and, all of those things. So yeah, really passionate about that. And as I said, it's been a journey. So that happened 3.5 years ago. And I think those last 3.5 years have been the most transformational for me personally.
So, walk me through what it's like to be a runaway bride. Someone that is, you have been on a journey of going into a relationship with the intentions, I'm sure, of lasting in that relationship and then deciding this is not for you. Walk me through that. And then can you speak to how women can't make those hard decisions? Can you speak to giving them some advice
Mhm.
on how to make those hard decisions?
Okay, so there's few things here, and I think one thing for me was the fact that at some point I have realized that I have been brought up in a kind of just the logical thinking,
Mhm.
being very mind over matter, being very kind of logical and coming from my head in
Hmm.
terms of any decision making, not necessarily close to how I actually feel.
Hmm.
So although you feel something is, uncomfortable
Hmm.
and something that maybe you just some that little, something that is doesn't feel quite right, but I've always been pushing that away. I've been so far away from my emotions, from my intuition. And again, I'm not sure whether that's probably part of my upbringing, but at some point it just that discomfort gets to the point when it's just like, I was waking up in the middle of the night and just the thoughts and that anxiety of like something isn't right. So I think one thing is like we have to be really honest with ourselves, like what is it? And sometimes it's easy to push it on the kind of daily stresses, right? Oh,
Sure.
because I don't know, my boss is said this and that's why I'm upset, or something happened and I'm not happy.
Hmm.
But ultimately, if it's, if you eliminate one, look very close to all of those external circumstances, what's happening around you, because quite often we push them away and we kind of think it's this thing
Hmm.
rather than the actual core thing that's going on internally. So it was that battle for me, and I think that was one of the things that I have realized, like something feels off
Hmm.
but I can't name it.
Right.
And that was the first step probably to me trying to get closer to my body. And obviously body shows us, right? Like when
Right.
something is not
That's so
right, you
true.
get sick, you get anxious, you get, so I went through the period of that as well. And then I started to be really honest with myself and started to like answering hard questions. And again, I think a lot of us are not comfortable being honest with ourselves because of, again, so many external things like, what is everyone going to think about me? What is everyone going to say? How do I deal with that I'm going to break someone's heart? So
Hmm.
again, all of those voices, everything was, internally happening for me as well. But that's something that I ultimately decided, like, right, something isn't right in my body. So I started to dig really, really deep. One piece of advice I would have, like, be really honest with yourselves, because that's ultimately what's gonna lead you, and unfold those little next steps. And sometimes it does feel like a big massive tornado exploding, and volcano exploding, and it's
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, everything just feels off. But sometimes it's those little things that happen over time. And like I said, I've been pushing those things away for way too long until it got to the point of like proper, almost like panic attacks. And that's when you ultimately know you have to do something about it.
Yeah. And what would you say to a woman that is in that situation right now where they feel something in their body? They can't identify what they feel, but they know something is off. I need to do something different. What advice would you give them? How do you walk them through something in that nature to help them to navigate that kind of space?
I think it's so, at least for me, what that was is a lot
Hmm.
of questions to myself. And like I
Hmm.
said, being really honest. And I am a big fan of journaling as well. I'm pretty
I
sure
love that.
a lot of your audience
Yes.
are as well. So it's journaling and kind of meditation, visualizations, and your body's going to tell you, like,
Hmm.
when you sit in a quiet moment, you know what and when it feels peaceful versus this, turbulences and waves of emotions coming through you. And one of the things that, like I've mentioned, journaling, because when you just pour those, emotions and thoughts on paper without any filter, without any, I'm going to come back to it later, I'm going to read it later, it has to be perfect, I'm missing the words, or I don't know how to put something on paper. If we just cut all of that noise and just with the honesty and really, this is how I feel without any filters, a lot of stuff is going to come up. And I was quite surprised with myself as well in terms of like, reading something that I have been going through and coming back to it like a few months later. It's like,
Hmm.
this is when I already felt this, but I was denying it. So I think, yeah, I think for me, it's going back to, being really, really honest with yourself and don't push away. If something is right, like notice it straight away or try to notice it and be honest with yourself from the very beginning.
So, what does being honest with yourself look like? Because I think when we talked about this last
Hmm.
time, we talked about the mind over matter, and sometimes
Yeah.
when you're logical, and you may have a client that is leading with their heart, it's hard for them to have that part of them that is true with themselves because they are true to their emotions, and their emotions can be fleeting, and they can follow the emotions and where the emotions lead them sometime, and it's down a rabbit hole to nowhere. So how do they
Mhm.
start to become true with themselves, like when they're sitting with themselves or when they're journaling? Like, how do they really tap into those emotions, but also have that logic part? Like, what would you say is a good way to start that balance?
Thank you for that question. That's a really great question. I feel it's a combination of both because, like you said, some people who are more emotional, they will pour the emotions over without that kind of, right, okay, let's take a step back, let's take a bit of a bird view. And I think it's, for me, one of the major thing as well is like, what is your end goal? Like, how do you want to feel? Where do you want to be? What does that look for you, whether it's a, relationship, a life that you're building, your career, friendships,
Hmm.
anything like that. It's probably starting with that end goal. I've read it only yesterday, I think. It's like start with the end in mind. So
Hmm.
it is probably that this is the situation that I'm aiming for, that I'm striving towards, and then this is now. And I think it's that bridging the gap. It's never going to be a big massive
Hmm.
jump, and this is where we have to probably step by step unpack what's stopping me from being there.
Hmm.
What is it that, whether it's internal blocks, whether it's my fears. I think a lot of stuff, a lot of women that I speak with, we all carry fears,
Hmm.
and those fears are, although we feel like they ours, they not necessarily, the fear is our, right? Because we fear something, but there is a reason, like we fearing what's the society gonna say, or what are my parents gonna think about me, what are my friends gonna think, or what is his family, in my case, what is his family and his friends are gonna
Hmm.
think about,
Right.
what's happening here. So again, it's those, coming back to the fact that this is what I want, this is where we're at now, and bridging that gap in terms of, this is what I recognize, these are the fears, these are the beliefs that I'm carrying, this is what my thinking about this situation is. And then take a step deeper, layer deep in terms of like, is it even my belief? Who said that I need to be married and, by 40 or
Hmm.
whatever? Or for me, it was a lot of fears and those, noises around. I've always wanted to, to be married, but is it actually mine? Even
Thought. Yeah.
story, like
Yeah.
where did it come from? Is
Right.
it, and I know, for some women, yes, that's so, this is always me, I've always wanted that, that's the dream and whatever else. But some of those I find a lot of the, especially single women that I talk to that are around kind of, my age,
Hmm.
a lot of us are realizing that maybe it wasn't ever my story. Maybe it wasn't even
Right.
ever my dream. It was the culture. This is all I know because that's how we've all been brought up.
Hmm.
So yeah, again, going back to the things of like just asking, just being curious. I think
Hmm.
I have learned over the last few years to be curious about the noise that's going on in my head. Is it really mine? What is it telling me? Why does it make me feel, if I have this thought, why am I feeling this way? The way, whether it's positive or negative feelings, or kind of, I don't like call feelings positive or negative, but heavy ones, they're helpful or unhelpful thoughts and feelings. So yeah, just getting that layer down, I think.
And I think the biggest thing, one thing that you said that really highlighted to me is counting the costs. You didn't say it in that way, but really counting the cost of forecasting what does that look like in the
Mhm.
end, and counting the cost to say, if I make this decision, what is this going to cost me in the end? What is this going to gain me in the end? What is the reward for me? And I think sometimes when we get caught up in our emotions versus our logic, we don't count the cost of what this is going to cost me. In your situation, you talked about counting the cost as far as how you felt, and also having to give up a lot
Mhm.
to put yourself first. And that is one admirable thing that I love about you and that you did, was put yourself first. Put your feelings first. Listen to yourself. Listen to your body. So tell me, what advice would you give to the woman that is scared to put theirself first?
Is there one piece of advice? I'm not sure that there is one piece of advice. I think it starts with the foundation. Like,
Hmm.
I feel like every single woman on this earth deserves the happiness and the dreams and, everything that she stands for.
Hmm.
And I think I see too many women agreeing to something, again, whether it's, relationships, work environment, living environment, whatever it may be for each individual person, that kind of mediocre settling because it's not that bad. That's the expression that I have heard so many times. Oh, but it's not that bad. It could be worse. Yes, but it could be better as well.
Mhm,
And I think we're stopping ourselves. So one, if I was to give one advice, is like love yourself enough
mm,
to choose you,
mm,
like love yourself so deeply that know that, whatever uncertainty is in front of you, if you love yourself, if you have that deep self trust in yourself and self confidence, self worth, take that first step. Don't be afraid
mhm.
of that. Do that, jump, leap. Because if you choose yourself, there's that expression, right? If you choose yourself, everything around you will start choosing you as well.
Oh, I
And
love that.
that's really interesting what you've said earlier about, the end goal and those things, because I feel like living in the moment, we think, oh, it's just one day, it's just 1 month, it's another year. And then by the time we wake up, it's I've just spent 10 years
Right,
in
right,
a,
right.
relationship or at work or in the
Mhm,
in friendships that
mhm.
are not fulfilling, that are
Right.
not aligning. And there were signs all the way,
Mhm,
right? But we are not brave enough to take that decision because it's not that bad. So
mhm.
I encourage every single woman to just, have that brave moment, brave, honest, courageous moment with herself, to answer those questions for herself and have that, build that trust. Because I think it doesn't, you just don't wake up with confidence and
Right.
self trust. You build it, yeah, to get to the point of like, I deserve more.
Mhm. And I think that is so
You froze. Have you got me?
okay, I'm here. I'm back. I do think that the biggest thing with choosing yourself is getting out of your comfort zone. When you're choosing yourself, it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be
Hmm.
that just great feeling. Oh my gosh, I chose myself. Now I'm throwing a party. It's
Yeah.
going to feel lonely at first. It's going to feel like the world is against you and you don't know which way to
Hmm.
go. And that is something that I wanted to highlight because I don't want to give a false perception of choosing yourself is this great thing and it's going to be no sacrifice and you're just going to have a great time and you're going to be like, I'm choosing me. And I know it's something that is very popular right now, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't take sacrifice. That doesn't mean that it's not going to be an easy path. But once you get over that point, then you will realize it's easier to say, okay, I'm choosing me. Okay, I'm setting boundaries. Okay, I'm doing this for me. So I say all that to say I want to ask you after choosing you, when you look in the mirror today, who do you see yourself as now? Who are you? The real you, beyond the titles, beyond what you do for people. Who are you?
I am a woman who is proud of herself. I am a woman who is happy with herself. I genuinely look in the mirror and I feel proud and I feel like, gosh, that was, scary, because I totally hear what you said about it's lonely. That journey is lonely. It's painful. It's not all rosy and
Right.
whatever. It is, it is hard to get here, but it's so worth it. So I feel so, yeah, I do feel happy and I do feel proud. And again, it doesn't mean that when you choose yourself, you become this self-obsessed person.
Mhm.
Quite the opposite. And I just want to clear that up because I don't want women to feel like, oh, once you choose yourself, you become this, self-obsessed and kind of me person.
Right.
Is not like that at all. What you do realize, you even for so this is how I see it, like confident people, the loud confidence,
Hmm.
it's not always the true confidence,
Hmm.
right? Is that quiet, grounded moment. I'm here, I'm observing, I know my worth. I don't need to talk, I don't need to be visible and be out there, because that's what that true confidence does.
I don't know what's going on with my computer. Oh, this is okay.
Yeah, so it's similar, I think, with that kind of, going back to your question, who do I see in the mirror? I see a person who struggled through, 20s, 30s, across all different aspects of my life. And I can genuinely, truly say now, I'm genuinely happy. Um, recognize my, I want to say weaknesses. Weaknesses, I don't know, we all have stuff that, we would want to improve, or maybe um not even that. Again, I don't necessarily want to say like faults or stuff like that. You probably just like realize who you are truly. And
Mhm,
yeah, maybe I am a little bit snappy at times. Maybe I am a little bit impatient at times, but I accept that. I know that I've got awareness of that. Do I love that version of myself? Probably not always, but I
mhm,
accept this is who I am. I see it as right, okay, I may have, there's a lot of probably introspection and self reflection on that journey as well, because you see the growth, and I'm always an advocate for celebrating any small wins. You mentioned boundaries earlier,
mhm.
and a lot of that is probably part of like, oh, I would have not stuck up for myself in that same situation or similar situation 3 4 5 years ago. Now it comes easily. Now I can open up and speak up and stand up for myself. So it's all of those little moments. And when I look in the mirror today, it's like these are all those little moments in the past that have built that version of me today. So yeah, she's proud.
Love that you're able to appreciate the little moments because I think everyone's trying to get to that goal of where you are without knowing where you came from and knowing your journey of all those small steps you took, all those silent no's, the silent yeses to yourself, and how you had to step by step get to where you are. And it's not just you arrive, you wake up and you're like, this is it. It's always a journey to learning, to becoming new, to becoming a better version of yourself, and also to being patient with yourself. Because I think those small little wins, you have to be patient because it doesn't feel like nothing at the time. It just feels like
Hmm.
another thing. Okay, I'm doing it. All right, it's done. But when it adds up over the course of
Yeah.
time, and you look back and you're like, wow, I got a masterpiece here. But it took those small little
Yeah.
steps for you to get there. So I love that you mentioned that because that is interwoven in why you are proud of yourself and why people will be proud of themselves once they take those small little steps. And I want to ask you, because I know a lot of people have different thoughts about coaching. And I want to ask you, what do you feel like the value you bring to coaching is? And caveat that question to what is the value of coaching, period?
Ooh, great question. I love it. So I've always had mentors in my life. I always had, coaches, mentors, whatever. Always kind of look up to people and kind of, oh, if someone said, well, actually, I'm saying always. It probably wasn't always because that was part of the journey as well. Years ago when I looked at someone, it's like, how do they have it and I don't have it? And it's not
Hmm.
necessarily material things, but it's kind of like, oh, why is it me that don't have it? And that is a big step towards that journey of this self-discovery as well, because at some point you realize that it's not that they were born lucky. It's not that they've something has been given to these people. They made a conscious decision, conscious steps to like look at themselves. What are my patterns? What are my behaviors? What am I doing or am I not doing?
Hmm.
That keeps me like, if this is what I want, how can I get there? And I think that's what, in a kind of long-winded way, the answer to the question about coaching, because I feel like a lot of people, a lot of us have answers within ourselves. Like we know,
Hmm.
like if you ask yourself really deeply, like, am I happy? Not quite, but this is good and this is good. So we internalize and we justify the feelings and thoughts and whatever else. So with coaching, I feel like the right questions, obviously in a safe space, people have to, you need to build that trust for people to be
Right.
open and kind of honest and create that environment. But that to me is power of coaching, because it's almost like sitting and being asked questions. You've got those light bulb moments where in fact you
Hmm.
probably deep down knew them all along. It's just some one little question or big question
Hmm.
that kind of brings things to the surface. But likewise, it's probably a new perspective sometimes, because we so always, I've always done things this way, and this always has been my thinking pattern, and this
Hmm.
is the way I've always behaved. What do you mean I can do things differently? This is what my parents did and my siblings are doing, and this is my work environment. So all of those external things are kind of weaved into how we feel and what we think, versus, okay, maybe my way is different. Maybe my way of thinking, just because I was brought up in this family where everyone did things same way, maybe that's not
Right.
my path. Maybe, maybe I can do something differently. So that's the benefit I see in coaching women, those light bulb moments of like, it's so, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, it's so simple. And I'm always like, yes, it is, because sometimes it's not like science or anything like that, but it's just the realization of ask yourself the right question. Something is going to come up and follow that, because if that answer comes up, that's probably what you needed to hear, and that's the right time for you to hear that as well.
And I love that you made that point because I think people forget about their self. They invest in everything else, but then when it comes to coaching, it's like, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to ask myself those questions? Do I really want to invest in having someone coach me? Is that, or they want to have someone coach them that's just like them, that they can see themselves in, and not diversify
Hmm.
who they're coached by. And I think we talked about this before, and I guess my camera keeps on freezing. But we talked about this before about people not being able to connect
Hmm.
with their a different sides of themselves, diversity, because sometimes you need to step out of your comfort zone to be able to connect to a new version of yourself. You might not want to be the person that you see today, so try something different.
Yeah.
Try someone you never would have coached you never would have talked to, that doesn't look like you, that's from a different walk of life, because they may open your mind to different
Hmm.
perspectives and also different outcomes that you didn't even know possible. So I do believe that coaching is pivotal to change, because just like it takes a village to raise a child, it also takes a village to become your new self,
Yeah.
to pillar your new self in. So it's going to take mentorships. It's going to take people to guide you on that journey. And that's why in my in my nonprofit, Joy Inside, that's why we coach young people on life. People that have their parents have passed, they don't have that mentorship, they
Hmm.
don't have that guidance. So the reason why I love talking to coaches is because I want them to be able to connect with that younger version of themselves and say, hey, you're going to make mistakes along the way. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. I want them to be able to watch these podcasts. I want them to be able to get coaching from individuals like
Hmm.
Carolina, and I want them to be able to say, okay, whatever I'm going through is not that bad. Because when you're young, everything the world is falling apart right now today, and I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. So I do believe that connecting back with who you truly are, or even connecting with yourself for the first time on who you're truly meant to be, is so important. But the first step is to look in the mirror and ask yourself the question of who you are.
Hmm.
With that being said, I want to I want to ask you, can you give some advice to younger people, or even to your younger self, on what you would do differently, or just advice looking back now that you would give to your younger self?
I love this question. So one thing that jumps out at me straight away is listen to that internal voice of yours,
Mm,
because that's kind of, that intuitive feeling, voice, little noise in you.
mhm,
It just knows. I think that's the thing that we very often, especially women, I feel like we very often quiet because of the, again, coming back to, society expectations of the way we were brought up. But I feel like internally, so many situations that I have said yes to, that I was like, not quite sure about this, but we do because of this, and 300 reasons. Sometimes it is that just,
mm,
listen to what your heart feels and
yeah.
what you feel internally. How does it feel? If it feels like, either, because sometimes it can be both. It's the little whisper that will kind
Mhm,
of pull you towards a person or an opportunity or something, and you're
right.
not quite sure why, like, but I'm kind of drawn over there
Right.
to something. Follow that voice. And sometimes it is that kind of, loud, like, no, don't go there. And
Right.
again, that's that internal voice of like, yeah, without anything that's going in your mind. That's where, going back to what we said right at the beginning, that follow your heart and listen to
Mhm,
your body. It always knows. And don't try to, I think I've spent too long over analyzing again,
Mhm.
going back, mind over matter, just over analyzing and putting labels and justifying my feelings. Don't do that. If you feel a certain way, accept that there is probably a reason why, or you feel something because you just feel it, and there doesn't have to be a reason or an explanation. And very often the answer will come back, oh, now I know how I felt. Why, not how, sorry, why I felt certain way, because this situation now showed me that it's not quite right. Or the other way, I know why I was so pulled and drawn towards this direction, because it feels amazing. It turned into a brilliant opportunity. So
Mhm.
it is that, like, listen to, but I think there is maybe a second layer to that, coming back to what you've said, like, get to know yourself. And so I think it does, like, and not to the point of like judging yourself. I'm not this and I'm not that. Get to know
Mhm.
yourself to the point where you actually, right, this is me. I don't like this certain type of fruit, or I don't like this certain type of weather. I don't like skiing, for example, or I may, all those little preferences. I think that's the core as well of, like, once you get there, once you kind of know, again, you don't need to understand, because that's where another thing comes up, like comparison. Why does this person, my best friends, likes this and I don't like that? It's
Mhm.
like, just forget about this comparison, get to know yourself and be okay with that. That's where that self-acceptance and self-trust starts, and then follow your intuition.
Yeah. I mean, that is great advice. I think because nobody knows the answer to everything, but everybody has the answer within for themselves. So,
Beautifully said.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Like, yeah, like that is truly like the conversation in a nutshell. You have the internal answer. But sometimes you need to be guided.
Yeah.
Your coach, your mentor, your mom, whoever, they don't have the answer for you, but they can lead you to the decision. And on that note, I know that you have great things to do today. I literally woke up at 4 o'clock this morning just to do this interview with you.
Thank
So
you.
that's why I didn't even put on makeup this morning. I'm like, I have to make it. But on that note, I really appreciate you coming to talk
Thank
to
you.
me, coming to share with my audience your wealth of knowledge, your story, your journey. And I want to ask you, not you, but the people watching, if the mirror could talk, what would it say to you? And if you look in the mirror, do you like what you see? Until next time, I'm Mirah Young, and thank you for watching.